Hello everybody, hope you are all in jubilant spirits. Welcome to the TSAT live program sponsored by the Commissionerate of Collegiate Education, Government of Telangana. I am DSSR Krishna, lecturer in English at Government Degree College, Hayat Nagar, Rangareddy district. During this session, we shall be discussing how important are writing skills and what kind of purpose does writing skills solve. To start with, the contents of the program would be an introductory session, an introduction to writing skills. Then I shall cover the different kinds of writing, the different styles of writing. And the third point that would be covered in this session would be the do's of writing. And the fourth, the don'ts of writing, and a thorough recap of all the entire points. To start with, let us see what actually does a language mean. The Collins English Dictionary defines language as a system of communication which consists a set of sounds and written symbols. In a more elaborate way, we can say that these set of sounds and written symbols are generally used by the people of a particular country or region for talking or writing, in other words, for communication. Now that we have understood what a language is, let us now try to go towards what a skill means. To refer to the Collins English Dictionary once again, a skill is defined as a type of work or activity which requires special training and knowledge. So, it is self-explanatory, the definition is self-explanatory that a skill cannot be mastered, cannot be learnt until it is practically applicable, until it is practiced thoroughly. To speak in a very precise manner to further enhance this discussion, language learning is a process of habit formation that involves a period of trial and error, where one tries and fails to use correct language until one succeeds. This particular definition has been given by B.F. Skinner, a linguist who suggested the behaviorist theory for language acquisition. To proceed further, any language that is not our native or regional language has to be acquired with constant, rigorous training of the 4 language skills, that is, learning, reading, speaking, and writing, without which, without rigorous training and constant practice, one cannot master these skills is very clear according to many linguists. To look at these skills, what kind of skills are these? When we look at listening and reading, these are considered to be passive skills. They are also called as receptive skills because we only receive them, and listening and reading is done only for comprehension or for understanding part, whereas the speaking and writing are considered to be the active skills. They are also considered as active skills because we need to produce these skills. In a way, communication is possible only when speaking and writing go hand in hand, and when we are able to produce these skills, then alone communication is possible. To move further, the focus of our session, our live session, is writing. When I mean to say writing, I do not mean handwriting. Writing is a special art and craft that needs to be developed through deliberate practice and study over a long period of time. It is self-explanatory, it is self-understood that writing can never be learnt in a day or two or overnight. It requires regular practice, it requires thorough practice. Otherwise, it will not be possible for one to acquire the skill of writing. To speak about the kinds of writing, now let us talk about the different styles of writing. There are basically 4 styles of writing, and when we concentrate on these 4 styles of writing, number 1, let us speak about the expository skill of writing. Now, the expository skill of writing, features of this expository skill of writing is that it gives information about various things, definitions for concepts, the cause and effect of certain thing. It compares and contrasts. It compares and contrasts two different elements or two different things. It provides facts and figures, and it is presented in a logical and correct sequence. This is considered to be the expository style of writing, where the examples for this kind of writing are newspaper articles, research papers, encyclopedia entries, instructional documents, cooking recipes. There are many other examples of expository kind of writing. When we move further towards the next kind of writing style, the next kind of writing style is the descriptive writing style. The descriptive style of writing, describes places, people, various people, events, such and certain situations, or even locations. Now, a lot of adjectives are used in descriptive kind of writing. And when we consider the examples for descriptive kind of writing, poetry, even in poetry, it requires a lot of picturization and imagery being used, where a lot of description is to be made regarding the places, regarding the setting of the poem. The journals or diary writing. Diary writing is an important part, where you find that all the important events, situations are to be described, what has happened at what time, and what is the sequence of events are also to be recorded in diary writing. And when we go towards blog writing is an important phenomenon that is found in the last 2 decades, where a lot of business correspondence and e-commerce is being done on this blog writing. Blogs are also used to express one's passions and fancies and interests, and these are also a kind of descriptive style of writing. And when you consider the other example, the descriptive passages in fiction are also is also an example for descriptive style of writing. Now let me move further towards the third style of writing, and when we talk about the third style of writing, it is narrative style of writing. When we talk of narrative style, the features of a narrative style is that it tells the story, and it has characters, it has dialogues, there is a plot in it, there is a setting in it, there is a problem. The author raises a problem and suggests proper solutions even to the problem. And the narrative style of writing or a narrative style of writing has a definite and logical beginning, continuation, and an end. There are many examples of narrative style of writing, where you consider novels, short stories, autobiographies, biographies, anecdotes, and so on and so forth. So narrative style of writing is the third kind of writing, where majority of artistic flavor is being brought out through this narrative style of writing. Moving towards the fourth style of writing is the persuasive writing. Many of the features of this persuasive writing is that it influences people. It is used, the author uses techniques to influence people. The author takes a stand and persuades you to agree. That is, you find that in majority of the cases where you find editorials, even in the resumes, it is very important for the students appearing for an interview to present a resume. And when they present a resume, they need to be persuasive, where to persuade the employer to provide an opportunity to the aspirant. And even when you look towards the advertisements is a very great example for persuasive writing, where the advertiser tries to influence people to buy so and so product, his or her product. Reviews, the reviews of film reviews, book reviews, and all these influence you to approach a book or take a book and start reading. So letters of recommendation, cover letters is also an example for persuasive style of writing. The letters of complaints are also examples for persuasive writing. So these being the four styles of writing. Now let us move forward towards what exactly are the do's of writing. There are certain do's which are very, very important to understand. We need to follow certain rules, and I am going to specify only a few do's and few don'ts in the session, because it cannot be comprehensive. The entire session cannot cover all the do's of writing and don'ts of writing. I hope the students will be able to gather a little bit of impetus from this session and go on and practice a lot of writing. The first do that everybody must remember: every good writer should also be a good reader. One cannot be a good writer without reading. So the first principle is that to be a good writer, you must read. Read, 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 and then write. To make it more precise, read, read, read. Read everything: trash, classics, good and bad, and see how they do it. This is a quote by William Faulkner, one of the very famous writers, and he says, read, read, read. Read everything: trash, classics, good and bad, and see how they do it. Just like a carpenter who works as an apprentice and studies the master. You know, the carpenter or a lawyer, you know, all these, you know, take apprentice from their masters and study the way they work very carefully and start working like them. Read, you'll absorb it, and certainly then write, then start writing. If it's good, you'll find out. It is easy to recognize whether your work of art, whether your writing is good or not, or otherwise, if it is not, throw it out of the window. Now, it will take some time for you to keep it, preserve it, and value it most, but it will not be late when you stop throwing everything out of the window, because whatever you write will become invaluable to you and invaluable to the readers. So practice reading, read as much as you can, read any waste paper, any material that is available to you, and do not lose any opportunity of reading. So reading is a must for writing. Proceeding further, the next step, the next do that you have to follow is building your vocabulary. Vocabulary is the stock of words that you have in store for you. Even while you are speaking and writing, vocabulary matters a lot. And if you do not have proper vocabulary, if you do not have powerful vocabulary in your store, you will not be able to become a good writer or a good speaker. Even while you speak, you can limit yourself to certain vocabulary, but whereas when you write, and when it is academic writing, when it is research writing, when you are presenting papers in a research paper or as such, it is very, very important to follow specific vocabulary. So that is the reason why I say, to make your writing very powerful and eloquent and effective, it is very much necessary to build your vocabulary. Start building your vocabulary and use new words. Use new words. By new words, I mean to say, stop using the redundant words always. Stop using the only kind of words which are available and which are regularly used. Try to use the new words which have, there are a lot many words in store. Instead of, when you want to express the feeling of happiness, I think you can include the words like happiness, joy, delight, ecstasy, bliss. All these are several examples for new words. And do not forget to carry a dictionary with you. Do not forget to carry a thesaurus with you, which will be very helpful for you to learn new words and to practice new words and apply them in your writing and to make your writing more effective. Develop practical vocabulary. When I speak of practical vocabulary, I mean to say it is the functional vocabulary, situational vocabulary. Whenever you are in a situation, you need to use a certain specific vocabulary. And the practical vocabulary becomes very, very important when you are in a particular situation. When you are writing a kind of paper That is very, very important. So you need to follow, you need to practice certain practical vocabulary, certain situational vocabulary is very much needed while you are writing papers. For example, you are in a restaurant, you are seated in a restaurant and you wanted to order for a good meal. So you need to know the practical vocabulary of a restaurant that is being used and that is used, and something like soups, starters, main course, dessert, lunch, dinner, brunch, breakfast. All these are the essential words when you are writing something related to food and eating habits. The third point that I would like to stress upon in building your vocabulary is use strong verbs. Now here I give an example for a weak verb and then how to use a strong verb. For example, here is a sentence which says, he gave an answer to my question. Here in this sentence, the word gave, in fact the main verb gave, is a weak verb. It does not serve the purpose, and instead of this weak verb, a strong verb can be used which will make, which will create a far greater impact and far powerful impact on the reader by saying, when you say, instead of he gave an answer to my question, you can say, he answered my question. That will be more appropriate, more understandable, and more effective when you use a strong verb instead of a weak verb. So this is how you need to build up your vocabulary. You need to brush up your vocabulary constantly, regularly, and it is not an overnight practice that you learn all the vocabulary in the world. It is a must that generally it is assumed that on an average about 3,000 words, 2,500 to 3,000 words are to be known to a person who writes, because that is the standard amount of vocabulary that is required for a good writer to make a good writer. And proceeding further, the next do I would like to focus upon is check your grammar. Grammar is very, very essential while you're writing, because this is a point that I think needs a lot of emphasis, where you find that when it is spoken kind of language, when it is spoken part, in spoken language you can have a little bit of lenience in the usage of grammar. Here and there, even if there is a slight mistake, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter much while you're speaking. But when you're writing, and especially when you're into serious writing, when you're into academic writing, when you're into scientific paper writing, it is very necessary. When you're into internet writing, blog writing, email writing, grammar becomes very essential. When you're applying to some, even in your resume, in your CV, in your application, in your letters, in your cover letters, everything that you write needs to be accurate. Accuracy is very, very important, whereas fluency is very important in spoken part. Accuracy becomes very important in grammar. So, for example, try to check this kind of sentences. Now, sticking to grammar rules is essential in writing, as I have already told you. Now, for example, just imagine a situation where you write a letter, where you write an application to your superior or to your employer, and you write a report, and say, the boys has performed greatly. You know, that is a blunder. When you say boys, when the subject is in plural, the helping verb should be the boys have performed greatly, but not the boys has performed greatly. This is just an example to tell you that grammar is essential while you're writing. Another example to look into, I live in the Hyderabad. All of us know basic principle that generally in most of the cases the is not used before the proper nouns, and Hyderabad being the proper noun, you cannot use the before Hyderabad until and unless in specific cases the is used. So it should be I live in Hyderabad. Another example to consider, he is senior than me. These are, if you observe very carefully, senior, junior, superior, inferior, prefer. All these are examples of Italian adjectives, and Italian adjectives do not take than when you are using a comparison. So instead, it takes he is senior to me, but not he is senior than me. So I think it is very clear to you that grammar becomes a very, very important part when you are writing, and please do remember that you should always carry a standard grammar book with you and keep on checking your grammar and improving your grammar, and it becomes very essential for you, and it creates a very good impression on the reader when you write certain paper, and it becomes more and more all the more important when you are in academic writing, when you are into academic writing, and even in artistic pieces, it needs to be, grammar has to be accurate. Now, moving on to the next necessity, next do's. Check your spelling. Spelling is another important point. Apart from grammar, spelling is also very important. Now, just imagine a situation where you write a wrong spelling, and that's highly embarrassing. It looks so embarrassing when you make a spell mistake, because that's the minimum of thing. Maybe you do not intentionally make a spelling mistake, but sometimes, spelling is an important factor that can tarnish your dreams, that can turn around your opportunities in employment or in any other situation. So checking your spelling is an important aspect that you need to look into. For example, if you are writing in a resume or in an application for a job, you write, my hobby is dairy writing, D-A-I-R-Y, dairy writing. Embarrassing, isn't it? It is not D-A-I-R-Y. When you mean D-A-I-R-Y, it is something like, dairy products, the milk products. But when you are speaking of dairy, diary, it is actually diary writing, D-I-A-R-Y. My hobby is diary writing, but not dairy writing. So it is very important to focus on this particular thing. The spelling plays a very important role. Another example that you can have a look into, I live in Hyderabad. Is it leave? No. If you say, for example, I leave Hyderabad, then I think that's okay. L-E-A-V-E is okay. But when you want to say, I reside in Hyderabad or I stay in Hyderabad, it should be something like, I live in Hyderabad, but not I live in Hyderabad. So L-I-V-E, live, is to reside, to stay, but not L-E-A-V-E. Let us look into another example. Her parents stay there, T-H-E-I-R. Is it right? It's not right. It's very clear. Her parents stay there, T-H-E-R-E is the word, and there is the possessive pronoun for they, T-H-E-Y. So it is it looks very embarrassing that the readers might imagine, or your employer may imagine, that you do not have the minimum common sense of using the correct spelling, and minimum knowledge of spellings is needed. That's what they imagine you to be. Even if you do it incidentally, if you make a mistake accidentally also, that becomes very embarrassing. So it should be her parents stay there, T-H-E-R-E. The last example in this section that I would like to focus upon is, I am in a meeting. Recently, I received a text message on WhatsApp saying that I asked a question, where are you? And one of my friends replied, I am in a meeting, M-E-A-T-I-N-G. I was shocked because it's M-E-A-T-I-N-G is not the correct word for it, but it should be I am in a meeting, M-E-E-T-I-G. So here I think I have focused upon spelling, how important is spelling when you are writing, and when you're writing any kind of writing, be it formal or informal writing, spelling plays a very crucial role in writing. Let us look into the next do. Make it simple. Sometimes many people have a habit of making making their vocabulary very complex. They try to show off their sense of knowledge or their store of words, treasure of vocabulary with them, with high use of vocabulary or difficult words that are used. Incomprehensible vocabulary is used. So I stress upon the point, make it simple, use comprehensible vocabulary. It is it is important to use comprehensible vocabulary, because no matter how proficient you are in the usage of words, you are not writing, please remember that you are not writing a PhD thesis. It has to be simple vocabulary. Even if you are writing email, if you are corresponding through emails, even if you are writing a resume or an application or a simple letter, it should always be comprehensible vocabulary. For example, if I say a sentence like, I am not flabbergasted at your headpiece after looking at your testimonials. Look at the words that are italicized. I am not flabbergasted, headpiece, testimonials. What sort of words are these? Though they have a greater meaning and it sounds good to look at this kind of words, but in an academic writing, or if you're writing an email, it is not preferable to use this kind of high vocabulary, and instead use simple vocabulary to express your opinion. And instead of saying, I'm not flabbergasted at your headpiece after looking at your testimonials, you can use the words surprised instead of, because flabbergasted means surprised, headpiece means intelligence, and testimonials mean certificates. So it can be simplified, and you can say, I'm not surprised at your intelligence after looking at your certificates. I think this would be fine, and the reader will be able to understand what you want to focus upon. The next point that I would like to say, when I mean to say make it simple, use simple sentences. I do not mean complex, simple, compound or complex sentences, but I mean to say simple to understand, plain to understand, clarity. The sentences should be clear. Whenever you are using a sentence, it should be clear, it should be understandable, it should be comprehensible. So please use simple sentences. For example, if I use a sentence like, I like to eat non-vegetarian food, especially chicken, more than vegetarian food. I think there is a lot of, instead of making it a simple one, it has been complicated to a certain extent. And what do you want to stress in this particular sentence? That you like chicken more than vegetables. I think drive home the point straight, and it will be very clear. I like chicken more than vegetables. This will be precise, and this will be very clear, I suppose. The next step to move on, the next do that I would like to focus upon is use right punctuation. Sometimes punctuation errors lead to a lot of chaos, lead to a lot of misunderstanding, misinterpretation. So punctuation errors leads to a lot many things. The reader is in a catastrophe. The reader is in doldrums, totally confused, unable to understand what you mean, what you want to say. So use the right punctuation whenever you are using, whenever you are writing. Use correct capital letters wherever necessary. Use a comma wherever necessary. Use a full stop wherever necessary, and do not change the places, and do not use it where it is not necessary. And so punctuation errors lead to a lot of misunderstanding. So be very careful about punctuation marks while you are writing. For example, I think this is a familiar example that's given by many teachers. Let's eat, Grandpa. So it indicates, well, what does it mean? Let's eat, Grandpa. It means that let us start eating our grandpa. Whereas it actually should be, let's eat, Grandpa. So let's eat, Grandpa is the point in it. So we have to be very specific about this kind of things. Let's eat, Grandpa. I think that would be better instead of let's eat, Grandpa. So it changes the entire meaning of the sentence. Another example to look at, this is what I have found from the internet, and in a resume, one of the aspirants, of job aspirants, has written, interests include cooking dogs, shopping, dancing, reading, watching movies, etc. Look at the first one, cooking dogs. Oh my God, isn't it to the bewilderment that cooking dogs, how can one cook dogs? So I think it should be cooking, comma, dogs, comma, shopping, comma, dancing, comma. I think that will do. So a wrong comma or a wrong punctuation mark and punctuation mark that is not used properly at right places will change the entire meaning. That is what I would like to focus upon. The next thing that I want to follow, focus is follow gender neutrality. By gender neutrality, I mean to say that there is a lot of emphasis on this point of sex and gender. So let me focus on this, that it is gone are the bygone days when you wanted to say that man is a social animal. No longer it should be used as man is a social animal. I think there has to be gender neutrality in the word man. Instead of man, it has to be replaced by human is a social animal. And even, for example, in many situations, you come across this kind of a situation where you say chairman. Why should the head of an organization always be a chairman? It can also be a chairwoman. So it is not chairman or a chairwoman, but a chairperson. A kind of gender neutrality has to be brought about in your writings. Please focus on this particular point. Another last point that I would like to focus is proofread. You might write a very good masterpiece, but it is very important for you to focus on your mistakes. Do proofread, do give a good reading before you go on to publish it. And before publishing it, after you give a proofreading, please do rewrite. Rewriting is a very important point. Rewriting is where the game is won or lost. If you do not rewrite, if you go for publishing with the rough draft, there is surely to be every chance for mistakes in it, and it might be a total mishap. The writing might be a total mishap. So rewriting is the essence of writing. Do proofread. In fact, I suggest you take the help of any one of your friends, because it is always very difficult to find mistakes in our own writing. So it will be better if some other person will proofread it and try to suggest whatever are the mistakes and correct it as early as possible. Now that we have we are done with the do's, now let us focus on the do nots. When I use do nots, please try to understand that I have used, I try to say don'ts, but here I am using do nots. There is a purpose to it. And the first point is the purpose. Do not use contractions. Avoid using contractions in academic writing. Avoid using contractions in official writing. Avoid using contractions in business writing. You cannot say am. You cannot say don't. And that is the reason why I have titled it as do not. You cannot say shouldn't. You cannot say wouldn't. It has to be a complete form. And I also add one more point to it. Do not use abbreviations. Abbreviated form of and, abbreviated form of etc, viz, ie, that is. So all these are a complete no-no while you are into academic writing. So please remember this point, that contractions are not at all to be used in academic writing. To focus upon the next point, avoid using unnecessary words like very, really, a lot. When you say very, it is something like, it is a very beautiful garden. It is a beautiful garden indicates the very, there's not much of significance to the word very. I am really impressed. I am impressed will be better instead of I am really impressed. And you can avoid using words like a lot and all these words. Unnecessary words are to be avoided whenever you are trying to write. And the third point that I would like to focus upon is try to avoid using the passive voice. In the sciences, in life sciences and physical sciences, it's okay, but when you are using it in the fields of arts, humanities, psychology, and every other field, it is always better to use active voice instead of passive voice. When you are writing a report, for example, you cannot say the Chief Minister was invited by the UN Council. So instead of using the Chief Minister was invited by the UN Council, the UN Council invited the Chief Minister for a meeting. That would be fine. That would be straight. And always use active sentences, active voice sentences in your writing rather than passive voice. In fact, even in spoken language, it is always better to use active voice sentences rather than passive voice. So passive sounds a little negative. And when you move on to the next don't, do not repeat the same idea, same words. Repetition, redundancy is to be avoided while you're writing. So please keep this in mind. For example, if there is an example like you are writing an application to your superior, to your boss, you need not say, hence I request you kindly. Request itself indicates kindly, and it need not be a redundancy like request you kindly. It is not necessary. Either use request or use kindly. That will be fine. Moving on to the next one. Do not pay attention to how much others are writing. Please don't compete with others in the quantity of what they are writing. It is the quality of your writing that is very important, but do not focus on how much are others writing. There might be bundles of writings that others are producing, but you need not produce the same number of writing bundles. So please concentrate on this point, where you need not focus upon, you need not compete with the quantity of how much others are writing. The next point that I would like to focus upon is, do not pay attention to what other people say what you should be writing. Many people suggest that you should not write stories, you should write poetry. You should not write novels, but you should write something else. I think it would have been better if you opted for some other thing. All these, it is what your heart speaks. You must try to write what your heart speaks. You must try to write what your field demands. But instead of that, if you keep on heeding to the advice of people around you, I think it will be very difficult for you to go ahead with your writing. So do not pay attention to what other people say you should be writing. When the next point is, do not react to the feedback of everybody. There are only a few people around you who would be able to suggest you properly, and so I think that will be better. It will be better if you focus on the correct feedback given by anybody, criticism by the closer ones that are towards you, and do not always react to the feedback of everybody, because that will bring a negative attitude into you and not help you to move further. So these are certain don'ts that I would like to focus upon, and when we have a quick recap of all the points that we have discussed today, we have spoken about the language skills, what exactly is a language, and what skills are, and how language skills are acquired, what are language skills, and how should language skills be acquired, is what we have spoken in the first part of this discussion. And then when we move forward towards the writing skills, we have spoken about what writing skills are, what is writing, whether writing can be acquired overnight or whether it requires elaborate practice, days together practice, a concerted effort is needed or not, is what we have spoken. We have also talked about what are the 4 different kinds of styles of writing. We have spoken about the narrative style of writing. We have spoken about the descriptive, the persuasive, and the 4 skills of writing have been focused upon. And moving on to the do's in writing, we already have spoken about all the do's in writing, that you need to read as much as you can before you start writing. You need to check your grammar. You need to be very particular about your spelling. You need to be particular about your punctuation. You need to be specific about gender neutrality. And it is very important to rewrite and proofreading is necessary. So all these points have been focused in the do's in writing, and we have also spoken about the don'ts in writing. What are certain don'ts that we need to focus upon have also been discussed in this particular session as to what you should not do, what you should not be doing. You should not be using contractions while you're writing. You should not be using redundancy. Don't redundate the statements that you have made, the ideas that you are making. So it is very important that you focus on what you should not do while writing is also very, very important when you are trying to write. See, I made a mistake when I'm speaking right now. I asked you not to use the word very, really, and all these words while writing, but I think I slipped this word too many times today, where I have used very so much. But that doesn't matter, because I'm speaking, and while writing it is to be avoided, and while speaking it is ignorable. So there are certain don'ts. There are certain don'ts that have to be focused, and concentrate on those don'ts that have to be focused. And remember once again that writing is a skill. It is a craft. It is an art which has to be mastered through thorough practice. And one cannot learn writing skills, when one cannot start writing exceptionally well right from day one. It requires a lot of practice. Read as many books as possible, and you cannot say that this is the limit for writing. You can enhance your skill of writing. You can take your writing skills to a greater level and excel in all the fields. And these days writing has a very earning potential also, even in internet content writing. When you're talking about internet content writing, and when you're talking about web designing and all these, writing plays a very crucial role. And there are people who are earning lakhs and lakhs of rupees by taking up writing. So do take up a course in writing if it is possible. Please concentrate on taking up a course in writing specifically, and that will be very important for you. And there are many institutions, there are many organizations who are giving out. In fact, business organizations are also providing training how to write internet content and how to develop blog writing. So do concentrate on these issues. That will be very helpful for you, and you can make writing as one of your professions through which you can earn a lot of money. And this is the book that I suggest to you all, William Strunk Jr. and E.B. White. This is one of the books that has to be definitely there in the storehouse, in the library of every student who wants to excel in writing. The Elements of Style is the title of the book, where you need to focus upon this particular book. I'm sure this session has helped you a little bit in trying to improve your writing skills. Hope you'll all adopt these strategies and improve your writing skills to a greater level. Meet you sometime later. Thank you, and happy learning.